Hello everybody, this is Gregory with How I Lost Over 100 Pounds, and I've kept it off for 30 plus years, where there should be no hesitancy in your weight loss and your weight maintenance. Today we're going to talk about the nut butters, the do's and don'ts regarding them. Now before you begin, if you need help with weight loss, contact me through the Clarity FM link found here in the episode notes. Also check out my website, which has hundreds of articles and recipes, my books, which you can find on Amazon. And if you like podcasts, I have the Awakened Man and the Cinema Rag. The first one's about health-related stuff. The second one's about movies and Hollywood gossip. You can find these on Apple and Spotify. Please check them out, rate and review, and follow them. And lastly, if you appreciate my content, there is a link for PayPal. Now, we have an ongoing series here, like what to eat, what not to eat at restaurants. And I'm going to throw in some of these particular episodes that focus on foods. We just did one not that long ago, maybe a week ago, on soups. I wanted to do one on nut butters because honestly, I just like nut butters, to be honest. And so this channel is like what's worked for me, but it also just gives me a platform to talk about what I like. And so I like nut butters. And so do a lot of people. And so does my dog. You know, everybody loves peanut butter. It's just very tasty. But there are definitely some pitfalls, both from like nutritionally speaking, but also the ingredients that you need to know. So I would say, first of all, the conventional peanut butter is fraught with some problems in that most of them are using hydrogenated vegetable oil. That is normally the second ingredient behind peanuts. Hydrogenated vegetable oil will lead to coronary artery disease, atherosclerosis, and is essentially a form of a trans fat, which we know trans fats are really bad for you. It's a code for a trans fat. So if you can't afford or just don't want to go higher than the standard, your grocery store's generic peanut butter or Jiffy, Peter Pan, I would recommend that you at least do the Peter Pan and Jiffy Naturals, because that natural brand or hybrid of the standard peanut butter uses typically palm oil or a healthier oil that is not a trans fat. And it's funny because I've been eating the naturals for so long that I can open the standard ones and smell it and tell that it's not one of those. It has that, it's almost like a rancid smell. And that's one of the issues we talked about with nuts when we have an episode on soaking your nuts. That when you eat nuts, the typical nut that you buy at the store has been roasted in vegetable oil. And normally this oil is rancid. I mean, it's like French fry rancid oil. And again, these oils are not good for our heart as well. But I would tell you at least go to the palm oil. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. Now, I would tell you, in terms of ingredient wise, the best thing to do is to make your own peanut butter. What do I mean by make? You're not going to be crunching it up, but you can certainly go to stores that they have the peanuts in the bin and you press the button, it comes out. And the reason that's better is because that's natural. Now, it doesn't have the preservatives that the peanut butter that you buy does, because anything that can sit on the shelf for months is not natural, I hate to tell you. And I've talked about how coroners and morticians are talking about how the cadaver, the human body, is rotting at a much slower level than in the past because our body's full of all these preservatives that we eat in packaged foods. So when it comes to peanut butters, I would tell you to get the natural ones where you press the button. Now, a lot of people try these and they're like, this doesn't taste good. And the reason you don't think it tastes good is because it doesn't have sugar. When you look at store-bought peanut butter, Jiffy, Peter Pan, they really try to hit the bliss point on that, and go to the episode we have on bliss points, that perfect ratio where they put enough sugar to make it sweet, and they have it, clearly it's very fatty, so they got that fat taste, and then they put a little salt because they want you to eat a lot of it, right? They want you to get hooked on it. So when you eat natural butters, nut butters, you're like, this is kind of bland, right? And so you have to kind of develop a taste for it, kind of like we've talked about with dark chocolate, right? The 60% dark chocolate is too sweet. You got to work your way up to the more natural 85, 90% dark chocolates because they have less sugar. Now, aside from that, I would stay away from peanut butter because peanuts, first of all, are not a nut and they're a legume. And secondly, they're not that nutrient dense compared to actual nuts. We've talked about, especially in the soup episode, how legumes are great for you. Legumes are a great soup, and I would tell you that's the par excellence for soups, is to eat lentil soups, pea soups, and so forth. But in terms of the nut, the peanut, and this is the reason why peanut butter is so cheap, or if you go to the bins that sell nuts, why peanuts are infinitely cheaper, because peanuts are really kind of garbage nutritionally. They do have a lot of fat, and a lot of that fat can be healthy if you don't roast them. But in terms of nutrition, they're not that high. So I would tell you, if money's not an object, to elevate yourself or elevate your nut taste to real nuts. So that, of course, that's going to be like almond butter or macadamia nut butter or cashew butter. Now, all these are going to taste differently, and there's going to be different varieties and iterations of them because different companies are going to put a certain amount of different sugar, different salt in it to make it taste differently. But at least with these, you are getting the nutrient denseness of, let's say, almonds. I think almonds is probably the most popular of the non-peanut butters. So you are getting that. Now, it does obviously have a different taste, and most almond butters are going to be at least twice, if not 3 times more expensive than the standard nut butters. Down here in Texas, like I can get just standard Jiffy or Peter Pan for probably like $2.20, but almond butters are at least $5.99. So that is something you need to look at. But if you really like peanut butter, it's probably something to think about investing in and getting the higher nut butters. Certainly, if you have children, unless you have a lot of money, you probably don't want to be doing almond butter if they like peanut butter, because you'll be going through that almond butter pretty fast. But go through, if money's not an object, go through the almond butters, get a cashew butter, get the different types and see which one really fits your palate. I would say nutrient dense wise, cashews are not even a nut, so I would kind of stay away from cashews. Again, they're a legume. So I would go almond or maybe macadamia nut, or there's not a lot of pecan butters, but I'd probably stick to the almond. The other thing you need to worry about is, and I've talked about this on the episodes on hidden sugar foods, is today we have a lot of the flavored nut butters. And so instead of it just being peanut butter or almond butter, you're going to have honey flavored or cinnamon flavored peanut butter or almond butter or whatever. You'll see a lot of these varieties, cookie dough flavored peanut butter and so forth. And you got to stay away from these because they're like one level better than Nutella. Or one level worse than Nutella. Nutella is even worse. You think of Nutella, the commercials for Nutella, it's like, oh, it's hazelnut. Hazelnut's like the 5th ingredient in Nutella or any of the chocolate spreads, behind high fructose corn syrup and fake chocolate and so forth. So the flavored nut butters, of course, they make them because they're sweet and they taste good and you're more likely to get hooked on it. But I would stay away completely from those because they're just not really good for you. So in closing, peanut butter, you got to be careful too, because peanut butter has a lot of nutrients. It's high in the good fats. It's relatively high for protein, relatively high for fiber. But you got to look at the serving sizes, my friends, because the serving size is like, what, 2 tablespoons? 2 tablespoons, you're getting like 16 grams of fat. We're only supposed to be eating, depending on what estimate, about 60 grams of fat a day. So it's very easy. And I've done this too, just to get a knife or get my dark chocolate bar and just scoop up a bunch of peanut butter. And if you're eating like half of a bottle of peanut butter or almond butter, you're ingesting a lot of calories. And this is one of the dangers of nuts, because I think if you soak your nuts and dehydrate them, nuts can be a great snack or even a great lunch in that it is very filling and very satiating, and it's very keto, obviously, and doesn't really have a lot of sugar if you're eating nuts per se. But they do pack a lot of calories. Okay, they do pack a lot of calories. And so unless you're working out 6 hours a day at the gym or you're like a swimmer, you do need to kind of watch your calorie intake. And so you just got to be very careful when you're eating the nut butters and when you're eating nuts in general that you don't overindulge. So guys, in closing, stick to the natural flavor or the natural peanut butters to avoid the trans fats, and then avoid the sugar flavors. And then if you can work your way up or you can afford it, do the almond butter over regular peanut butter. Guys, post in the comments. Let me know how often you eat the butters. I'd like to hear from you. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.